Mauricio Dubón sparks an unwritten rules controversy. There was serious drama between Antoan Richardson, the Giants' first base coach, and Mike Shildt, the Padres' third base coach. And oh, by the way, the Giants went out and clubbed the Padres and scored 13 runs. So we're going to break it all down next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And my goodness, what an entertaining day of baseball if you're a fan of the Giants, and also drama and controversy. The Giants wearing their City Connect jerseys, I have to mention that. They improved to 9-1 in these jerseys that originally were met with such disdain, but they just have played so well and they've kind of embraced it now, I think. They're almost like so ugly that they're beautiful. And they even took it up a notch with adding the City Connect creamsicle orange helmets with white lining. It was just incredible to me. I've come to love the vibe of the City Connects, and it probably has a lot to do with them improving to 9-1 and just exploding offensively. They score 13 runs, 10 in the first 2 innings. And oh, by the way, if you listened to yesterday's podcast, did we kind of call that? We said, you know, these early season struggles, they happen, and in one game it can all get wiped away, and maybe you're going to go out there and score 12 runs. I don't know what number exactly I said. And then boom, you move from like 20th in the league in weighted runs created plus up to 5th. And that's like exactly what happened. I have to say. So they literally did. They're now at a 120 team weighted runs created plus, which is 6th in Major League Baseball. And their pitching is up there at the top as well. So that's the thing. Hopefully for anybody who was like super concerned based on the first 4 games, just please put this in the memory bank as to not being super concerned through the first few games of a baseball season ever, good or bad. I mean, you're not going to be concerned if it's good, but just still, it's too early. But it just goes to show you one game can kind of correct things a little bit this early in the season. So there was that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Alex Cobb's Giants debut, and almost as good as Carlos Rodon, not as overpowering, but 10 strikeouts in 5 innings. But I want to start with this Mauricio Dubón situation because it's just so very interesting to me. So basically what happened earlier in the game, Dubón and Duggar, I think it was the second inning with the Giants having a 10-run lead or so, Dubón and Duggar stole a base. Maybe it was like 9-1 at that point. It was kind of lopsided, but it was early. And so we'll get into whether or not that's right or wrong later when we also talk about Mauricio Dubón. So Dubón, it was the bottom of the 6th, and I think the Giants did lead by 10 at that point. Believe he was leading off the inning, or there was one out, and he bunted for a single. And it really ticked off the Padres. You could see their entire dugout looked like they were ready to physically attack Mauricio Dubón. Like Matt Williams specifically, and Mike Shildt, and even Bob Melvin, and some players. Like, they were all mad. Steaming mad, and I completely get it. Like, I played baseball. I've been following baseball like as my number one passion in life, like for as long as I've been able to think rationally as an individual. So I get it. I understand the unwritten rules, but I also think that this one in particular is dumb. They're all kind of dumb, and that we would be better off if we just kind of get over it a little bit. And also my opinion is that I'm not saying that I'm not surprised that it made them mad, but also them being mad is kind of their problem, and they need to learn to handle their emotions a little bit better than getting so mad that you just can't even control yourself. So the point, though, after the game, Gabe Kapler made the point to end all points. He completely, like, I was defending Dubón anyway, But then Gabe Kapler said something that just ended the conversation. It's over. There's no more conversation about this. And then there's something else on top of that that even further is just, it's set in stone. This is not a thing that we should care about anymore. And what Gabe Kapler said was that they're not doing it to disrespect the opponent. They're not trying to run up the score and make you look bad. They think it is a strategic advantage to continue to burn through the opposing pitching staff and to have relievers throw a lot of pitches, throw more pitches than they otherwise would if you weren't taking advantage of stuff like that, and also to use more pitchers. So essentially to tire out your opponent for today's game, today being the next day. And it is impossible to really make a counter argument to that. And it's so much more important than them getting their feelings hurt, which, by the way, is just ridiculous, right? Like, these are grown men, professional athletes being paid millions of dollars. He's just bunting. If you don't like it, cover it, play the defense so it's not going to happen, or do it yourself. Like, if it's such a good strategy and that's why you're upset that you took advantage of it, do it yourself and come back in the game instead of getting so mad. Like, you can be a little mad and I don't know, just the reaction is just kind of gross to me. But anyway, Gabe Kapler saying that, I'm going to find the direct quote. I have it pulled up here. He said, quote, "We're not trying to run up the score on anybody. We're not trying to embarrass anybody. We're not trying to disrespect the game. I'm fully aware of what the sort of unwritten rules are. We just don't think they apply here. We think the most important thing for us is to try to win the series, and sometimes even win beyond the series. Oftentimes that means trying to see as many relievers as possible and make as few outs as possible." How do you argue with that? He said the strategy is, quote, "completely unemotional for us." And so, we've got quotes from Eric Hosmer saying, "I definitely told him how we felt about it. He said it was a sign given to him by their staff. I just told him, I think you've got to be a little bit smarter in that situation, blah, blah, blah." Kapler, basically they talked about it in spring training as a team, and they decided it was worth any ramifications that might come from it, because they know that this is going to make other teams mad. But they decided it's an advantage for them to just keep their foot on the gas pedal. Currently pitching at that time was Dinelson Lamet, who has dealt with injuries. And so running up his pitch count very likely takes him out of today's game. Like, if you can have a big, long inning against him, he probably can't pitch today. And he was formerly an excellent starting pitcher. And so, in theory, he's going to be a good reliever. And to get him to not be able to pitch today because you continued to score a bunch of runs is 100% a strategic advantage for the Giants. And so it's the argument to end all arguments, really. Just keep running up the score, like keep trying to score runs. That is the point of baseball. Don't give away outs. If they're giving you a hit there, take it. And the other thing that somebody pointed out on Twitter, there's no more game 163. If you have a tie at the end of the year, the tiebreaker is determined partially by run differential against the team you're tied with. So I actually don't know if it's 100% run differential, but I do know that it's part of the equation. And so if you end up having a run differential of, -1, you should be thinking about that one run you left on the table because you were trying to protect their little delicate feelings in this baseball game. Just ridiculous. So anyway, I get the unwritten rules. Gabe Kapler, you should watch this comment he made in the post-game interview. It was just really, really smart and well said and unemotional. He was like, look, we get it. We're not trying to disrespect anybody. We just think it's what's best for us to try to win. And A+. Just he handled that so well. So coming up next, we'll talk more about it. We'll talk about the Antoan Richardson, Mike Shildt situation. And also, oh, by the way, how about the game itself? We'll definitely get into that as well. So all of that in just 1 minute. But first, it's that time of year. I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Imagine that. Have you tried the Puffs yet? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they really are a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate as well. Go to built.com, scroll down to their macros chart, and you'll be blown away. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. Most Built bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, here we go. We are going to continue talking about this crazy game with so much happening last night. Unfortunately, in a way, today is a day game, so you may be hearing this podcast after another game has been played, but that's okay. All of this is still going to be relevant. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On Now podcast, recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts, taking fans through the season like no other network, free and available wherever you get podcasts. It really is great. After every game, we put out these little 1 minute or so blurbs. They're not just summaries of the game, but like kind of summarizing the key emotions of that game. Like last night, we talked about all these different things that happened, and you can follow the whole major leagues by listening to the Locked On Now podcast. Our experts with their little summaries of every game, talking about the biggest stories from that day. So check it out. Anyway, moving on, Antoan Richardson and Mike Shildt. This is definitely a story. Okay, I didn't even mention, some of you are probably thinking, I don't know. I forgot to mention another thing that happened is that Alyssa Nakken went out and coached first base in this game, which, she became the first female coach to appear on the field in a Major League Baseball game in the history of the sport. So really cool moment. Her City Connect creamsicle orange helmet is going to the Hall of Fame. This is like the moment I knew it was going to be another good season, to know that the City Connect helmet in its first day of existence is going to the Hall of Fame. So that's cool. Congratulations to Alyssa Nakken. But the story behind it is that the Giants first base coach, Antoan Richardson, was ejected from the game. And it happened while he was in the dugout in between innings, or I don't know if it was I think it was in between innings, and we didn't really know what happened. But after the game, he called the media down to talk to them, and he basically said that Mike Shildt was staring into their dugout, and Antoan Richardson asked him, "Can I help you?" And then Shildt said, "I'm not talking to you," or "I'm not looking at you." And then Gabe Kapler came over to defuse the situation, and then Shildt said he was looking for Alex Wood, and then Richardson told Wood that Shildt was looking for him, and then Shildt said to Kapler regarding Antoan Richardson, "You need to keep that bleeper under control, or get that bleeper under control," talking about Antoan Richardson. And understandably, this was like hurtful for Antoan Richardson. He just basically called out Mike Shildt for doing this. And by the way, why did Antoan Richardson get ejected out of that exchange? There's like video of Richardson kind of. So after Shildt said that, Richardson, I think, took one step out of the dugout maybe and said, "Excuse me," to Mike Shildt, but not in an aggressive way. I mean, if you know Richardson, he's a small guy first and foremost. He's very non-threatening, I would say. No offense to him, but it was weird that he's the one who got ejected out of that exchange. And in fact, that was part of Richardson's complaint, was that it was very disappointing that the umpire, I think the crew chief, he said, chose to eject him from the game for that. So Richardson said that it was highly inappropriate, first and foremost, just to have those type of words with him. But he also said that it had how did he phrase it? He said that there were racist undertones. And, my big takeaway from this is that I'm glad that the Giants are an organization that supports their staff, and that Richardson felt like he could speak up without not having support. I think he has the full support of the organization, and certainly his the coaching staff and Kapler, to speak up about something that clearly was hurtful for him. And Mike Shildt, by the way, I mean, I don't know him personally, but he was like bizarrely fired by the St. Louis Cardinals as their manager this offseason, despite leading them to like a 250 and 200 record and multiple straight playoff appearances. So it was really weird that he got fired. And then he ends up landing with the San Diego Padres. He's not normally going to be their third base coach. That's going to be Matt Williams, but Williams just had a hip replacement. So that's why Shildt is out there. There's also a famous kind of YouTube video. It was an Instagram live, I think, by Randy Arozarena when the Cardinals won a playoff series a couple years ago. And it's just a curse word laden rant about we're going to bleep those bleepers up in the next round and we're going to bleep them up. Like it came across as kind of over the top and a little bit angry. So that's kind of the theme I'm gathering from Mike Shildt, including the interaction with Richardson and the way he looked in the dugout at Mauricio Dubón after he bunted. And Matt Williams, same thing, just anger. There's a little bit over the top anger coming out of all of this. And that's what I'm noticing. So anyway, before today's game, at the time of this recording, what we know is that Shildt and Richardson spoke on the field and gave a handshake and also embraced a little bit. And so it seems that they've cleared it up. And then we also heard, and I don't yet have the results of this, but there's a little video on my timeline that they are addressing the media. So this has become a significant story here. And Richardson says he knows Mike Shildt is not a racist, but wanted to bring awareness to how words impact certain communities, even without ill intent. So that's fair. And Mike Shildt is out there, so I'm interested to hear what he has to say as well. And anyway, I'm just glad that that this type of thing is allowed, and it's not something that has to be pushed under the rug necessarily. So yeah, I mean, let's focus on baseball at this point, I would say. So the Giants, after all was said and done, they just put a whooping on the San Diego Padres and Yu Darvish. They score 13 runs, and Alex Cobb just has a kind of dazzling debut, as did Carlos Rodon. So we're one turn through the rotation as advertised. They looked like one of the better rotations in the game, one turn through. So coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the numbers and how they've changed after this blowout win in the City Connects. Giants hitting 3 home runs. Jock Peterson got his first. A couple others hit homers against Will Myers, who was pitching. So we'll talk about all of that next, including some of the amazing velocity numbers on Alex Cobb. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about the details of this Giants drubbing of the San Diego Padres last night. It was a lot of fun, and I want to say a long time coming, but really it was just 5 games into the season. And I mean, everybody up and down the lineup really contributed, including guys who had been scuffling. Mike Yastrzemski got things started in the bottom of the first with a hit. He ended up with 2 hits. Brandon Belt hit a home run and drew a walk. So Belt has just had a really productive first few games of the season. Darren Ruff 0 for 2 with 2 walks. Jock Peterson quietly is he's had a good offensive start, even though it hasn't almost seemed like that in some ways. He's hitting 308, 400 on base, 538 slugging. So yes, his home run came against Will Myers. Wilmer Flores also added a home run against Will Myers. So, that factors into it. It is a position player pitching. Joey Bart had another good game with, what did he do? 2 for 4, a couple of hits and 2 strikeouts. Steven Duggar got a knock. Tyro Estrada had 2 hits, just up and down the lineup. Crawford had to leave the game with a little bit of a wrist injury, and he's not going to start today. It's going to be a lefty starter for the Padres, so that probably would have been a rest day anyway, as he had started every game so far. But he's day-to-day and may not be able to play on Friday, so that's significant. I actually am not sure exactly what caused the injury, but he did come out pretty early in the game, and that's how Mauricio Dubón infamously got in and did that bunt. So the real story, though, I mean, the offense was great. It's great to see, as they really did struggle in the first few games. They scored 12 runs in the first 4 games combined, and then 13 runs in the 5th game. So, like I said, when all was said and done, all of their offensive numbers now are in the top 10 in the game, and their pitching numbers are in the top 10 in the game. So that's good to see. hopefully they can keep that up. But Alex Cobb, 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, 2 runs, 4 hits, 2 walks. It was just a really, really good debut. And you have to keep in mind, he's your 5th starter, and he's going up against the Padres' number 1. And when I say 5th starter, I just mean he's starting in the 5 spot in this order. Like, it really doesn't matter to me what you call these guys. Oh, he's a number 3. He's a number 4. It doesn't matter. They're in the rotation. It really doesn't matter what the order is until it's the postseason. Then the order gets reset, and I think it matters more. But as the season goes on, you're never, it's rare that you're aligned with the other team's order. And so it doesn't really matter what order they go in to me. But he was great in his Giants debut, and the velocity is real. I mean, this is something we have been talking about because we heard about it in spring, and it came to fruition. He threw the hardest pitch he's ever thrown in a major league game last night. And Alex Cobb has been around a long time. Alex Cobb has been around since he's 34 and a half years old. He made his major league debut in 2011. So he's been around a long time, and he threw a splitter last night that was 91.8 miles an hour, which is above his career average fastball velocity of 91.6. And his fastball averaged almost 95 miles an hour, and he threw one over 96. So it's just really good to see out of Alex Cobb. And like I said, if he's your number 5 starter, and then the rotation is flipping over right now with Logan Webb and Carlos Rodon and what they're capable of doing, and we know what Wood and DeSclafani are capable of doing, and then Alex Cobb, there's really just not a weakness there. And if they can just stay on the field, I'm just hoping for that, then this is going to be a very good rotation. And so I'm excited about that. And also I want to mention Tyler Beede got into the game last night. Looked, shaky with command at times, but the stuff looked good as it usually does. So I remain hopeful on Tyler Beede. And then Junior Marte made his major league debut closing out this game in the 9th inning. And to me, he looked crispy as well, throwing a good fastball in the upper 90s and just looking like he's looked in Sacramento, which has been sharp. And so it's exciting to have Junior Marte here. He's here because Tyler Rogers went on paternity leave, so he could be optioned back out. He's 27 years old, so this is a long time coming. For him, he entered Pro Ball in 2013, so to finally make his Major League debut is a big deal. And so congratulations to him. He just becomes another valuable piece of the puzzle in terms of having good depth. And so, if somebody else in the pen is struggling, he could be a guy who overtakes somebody on the depth chart. I don't want to call anyone out by name, but it's just good to have good players. And when you have so many good players that some of them inevitably end up in the minor leagues, that's even better. It stinks for the guy who deserves a shot who has to go to the minors, but it's good for the win-loss record of the major league team. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Man, so much to cover. I hope that we got to all of it in a way that gave enough time to each different category. But coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk about today's game and also any residuals from these incidents. We'll see if the Padres had anything else to say about all this and so on. So anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the majors, past and present. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Stay Locked On Giants.